If you've ever tried to crochet a circle into a square and ended up with something shaped like a very confused tortilla, today is your redemption day. What's your favorite granny square color combo? Bold and loud or soft and subtle? Drop it in the comments so we can all steal your ideas. Hey crochet friends, I'm Mo, your crochet companion. Today I'm showing you how to make the Sunburst Granny Square. A bright, textured square that's as fun to stitch as it is to show off. And just so you know, once we finish the tutorial and weave in those ends, I'll be sharing a little bonus. Let's call it a behind-the-scenes crochet mystery. It's totally optional, but if you stick around, you'll meet my friend Stella Stitchwell. And trust me, her projects never go quite as planned. So what are we making? We're making the Sunburst Granny Square, a bright round center that works its way into a square. Perfect for color play and adding a pop of personality to blankets, bags, or home decor. The skills you're going to learn today, we're going to learn the magic circle. For those of you who've already seen some of my tutorials, I do go into the magic circle quite a bit more extensively. Some of those videos are like the crocheting in the round. I think I do have one that actually just is the magic circle. We're also going to be going over the puff stitch. I also have a tutorial just specifically on the puff, bobbles, and popcorns. And we're going to do how to transition from a circle to a square. So basically the circle and then it becomes a square. And then the last thing that we're going to be covering is the color changes without tangles. So I do have a couple tutorials out there, how to switch colors or add a new skein of yarn, that kind of thing. So I have a couple different ones, but we're just going to cover what I basically do when I'm switching colors on an everyday, day-to-day basis. All right, we're about to start the party, but first we do need to cover what we're actually going to use. I'm actually using the Hobby brand yarn. It's actually a sport weight, but you can also use a worsted weight. Doesn't matter to me, but you are going to need to get at least 4 colors. Some people, they want to do 5. That's fine. That's more power to you. You just need to do an extra row at the tail end. So I chose the yellow, the kind of the goldish, and then the orange and the green, kind of like a sage green. And then as far as tools, I'm going to set these aside. Obviously, we're going to need our scissors, our darning needles, and then if you're using the sport weight, I would recommend using the 4mm, or I believe it's an F, I believe, as a regular hook. And then if you're using the worsted weight, use either 5mm or an H hook. Those are your best choices for that, okay? Okay, let's get this going. So we're going to start with the magic circle. And everybody does the magic circle slightly different. I've seen all different kinds of variations. I found them to be incredibly complicated to figure out. So what I do is I have the tail end toward me. I wrap it around my finger, make sure that I overlap, grab my yarn, just pull it up just slightly, just to kind of make a loop. And then I'm going to grab that end with my other finger. And since we are actually going to be, so you see I've got my circle pinched and I've got one loop up there. So I'm going to go ahead and do a just one chain so that I can secure that. And then we're going to be working over both of those strands of yarn right there, okay? So for this, we are actually doing a puff. So you can do this one of 2 ways. You can do a chain of 2, right? And then go into your, actually no, I'm so sorry. I'm thinking of the next row. So the first stitch, the first row is actually 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets, chain 1. So you can do this one of 2 ways. You can do the chain of 2, or you can do a stacking stitch, which is a single crochet. So we're going to do a single crochet And the stacking stitch, this was your bonus stitch, by the way. And in the side piece right here, this little horizontal line, excuse me, I need to go a little bit closer, I'm so sorry. So this little horizontal line right here, let me get my needle here so you can see it without my fat finger in the way. So this horizontal right there, we're going to go in that. This is actually called a stacking stitch. So we're going to stick our second single crochet in the side, that side stitch right there. So we're going to pull that up and finish the single crochet. That is called a stacking stitch. Okay. Now to finish that off, we're going to do another double crochet. We're going to just keep on going over these 2 strands of yarn. Going to do a chain of 1, another 2 double crochets. So we're going to keep going like that until we have 8 sets of 2 double crochets, chain 1. So they're going to have a total of 16 double crochets and 8 chain 1s. Okay. Oops, out of the frame, sorry. Let me back up a little bit. There we go. All right, so I'm going to finish off. So you're going to keep on going. You're going to do 2 double crochets, chain 1 until you have 8 sets of 2 double crochets or 16 double crochets and a chain 1 in between those 2. Okay, so I'll be right back. Okay, so we made it back. So I'm just going to go over this real quick so we are all on the same page. So you'll see that I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 double crochets, and in between each double crochet and right after that last double crochet, you'll want to have 1 chain. So you did 2, 1 chain, 2 double crochets, 1 chain, 2 double crochets, 1 chain, and so on and so forth. So we're landing on a chain. Okay, so now that you have all of those on that loop, right, we crocheted over both of those, you're going to take the tail end of your work and you're just going to lightly pull it. And for some of us that are a little textile junkies, we find that very satisfying to pull that. For this, I wouldn't say you really want to pull too terribly tight. If you have just a nice little circle like that, that's fine. You can pull it a little bit tighter if you want to, but it's not really all that necessary. And then once you're done, you're going to weave this end in so it doesn't go anywhere. Okay, so now we are going to find that stacking stitch that we did, and we're going to slip stitch in that top stitch. So let's go a little bit closer so you can see what I'm talking about. So we did that stacking stitch at the very first. We're going to do it in, we're going to put our slip stitch right in here. Now I made it too tight. Figures. Okay, so at this point, you're going to take your thread and you're going to snip it and pull it through. And we're going to add a new color in the next round, okay? I can't remember which one I wanted to do. Oh, yes, the gold. We are going to do the gold. You know, when I say gold, I think of goldfish. I don't know why. I just think of goldfish. Okay, so everybody has a different way of adding their yarn to their work, right? I am not into let's tie it on. I mean, you can if you want to. You can stick that in there and tie it to it. I'm not too crazy about doing that, so I just lay mine over the top and then I do just a regular slip stitch. So let me get my fingers in there. We're going to just do a swoop and pull it up and do a slip stitch. And then I just kind of keep that in front until I'm ready for it to be anywhere else, okay? So now we're going to get to our puff stitches. So for our puff stitch, we want to do a chain of 2 just to get started. Then we do a yarn over insert our hook into that chain space, yarn over, pull up a loop. So now you have 3 strands of yarn on your hook. We're going to do that another, let's see, I think I liked 3 and 4. So we're going to do, so because this chain 2 is going to be considered our first one, that's going to be our 1, and then you're going to do another 2 times. So a total of 4. So you'll understand once I get into the next stitch, okay? So we're going to yarn over, insert our hook, yarn over, pull up a loop. So now we have 5 strands. We're going to do that one more time. Yarn over, insert our hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, okay? Now we're going to yarn over and pull through all of those loops. Another one of those textile satisfaction type of moments. Then we're going to yarn over, well, excuse me, chain 1. Now, in that same space, we're going to do that all over again. So you're going to yarn over, insert our hook, yarn over, pull up a loop. We're going to do that 3 more times. Yarn over, insert a hook, yarn over, pull up a loop. Yarn over, insert a hook, yarn over, pull up a loop. 1 more time. So I do it a total of 4 times. So there's yarn over, insert a hook, pull up a loop. Now we're going to yarn over, pull through all of those loops, and then chain 1. Okay, so now going on to the next, we're going to skip those DCs, the double crochets, and we're going to go into the next chain 1 space. Now you'll notice that in this row I'm actually crocheting over my strands. This actually secures them into place. You can weave them if you want to. In rows after this, I will actually weave them in. Okay, so now we did the chain 1. We're going to do another 2 puff stitches. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. That makes 1 puff stitch. Chain of 1. Then we're going to do 1 more puff stitch. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Go through all of those and chain of 1. So from here on out, you're going to do 2 puff stitch, 1 chain in between each one in each of these chain 1 spaces. So let's do 1 more together. 1, 2, 3, 4, chain 1, 1, 2, 3, and 4. All through those loops, and I seem to keep doing it way too tight for myself. There we go. Now we're going to do that all the way around, and I'll meet you at the end. Okay, before we go too far, I wanted to mention one thing. We're going to cut these little ends off here because I've got them secure enough now. And I wanted to mention real quick that it depends on your choice, your desire. You can do these thinner. So if you want your puff to be not quite so fat, just do 3 instead of 4. And then if you want them to be fatter, go 5. Make it big. I personally like mine just slightly fatter, but not so fat that it overtakes things. I want it to lay nice and flat, so that's usually why I just do 4. So obviously we land on a just a chain 1, and we're going to go to the top of the first puff, and we're going to slip stitch right into that top stitch. And there we have it. We have round 2 done. We're going to snip our yarn. Give yourself just enough of a tail so that you can weave your end in, because that one you are going to weave your end in. Okay, so now we're on to the orange color, and I have to really be over pronouncing it, because if I'm not paying attention I say orange instead of orange. And I get picked on quite a bit by my family for saying it that way. But apparently I get excited and I just say orange. Okay, let's start into round 3. So we're going to grab any one of these chain 1 spaces. We're going to wrap our yarn across there. This is the way I do it. And we're going to pull up the loop and do a chain of 1. Now, you can do round 3 any way that you want to. You can do a cluster if that's a preference for you. I would do like a 3 DC cluster, possibly 4. That's up to you. I prefer the puff stitch for this, so I'm actually just going to demonstrate the puff stitch. Now, if you want to do the cluster, I do have a couple videos out there that are specifically for the cluster. All right, so let's get into it. We're just going to do the chain of 1 to start our first puff. And we're going to do the same thing that we did before. We're going to do 4. So we're going to consider our chain 2, our first one. So then we're going to insert our hook, pull up that loop. 1, 2, and 3. So technically that's 4, okay? Oh, wait a second. Nope. Let's do that again. I don't trust myself on that count. All right, there's 1. Nope, that's 2, 3, and 4. And we're actually just going to do 1 puff stitch in each one of these chain 1 spaces. And we're going to chain 2 in between each one. So there's 1. Let me demonstrate 1 more, and then I'll meet you at the end. So we're going to do 1 more. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3, and 4. Pull through all of those loops and chain 2. Then we just keep on going, and then as I get to this spot, I usually will crochet over this just once. So I'm going to put my next puff here and my next puff here, and I'll crochet over those strands just to about here, and then the rest of them I'm actually going to weave in. The reason why is because there's more of a gap in between these spaces. You're going to see that yarn kind of hanging out there, and it kind of looks a little silly if you don't weave it in, and if you just leave it hanging out there, it just kind of look a little silly. Whereas these, because these are so much closer together, it kind of hides behind there a little bit better. So, all right, I will meet you back here at the end, and then we'll go to our final round, which is our square round. Okay, so we're going to do our last puff together. I know, it's so sad to do the last one, right? There's 3. Oops, well, 3 and 4. Now, I was going to mention real quick, too, you can do 5 instead of 3 or 4. So those of you like your puffs to be a little bit fatter like I do, you can do 4 and 5. All right, so we did our last chain of 2. We're going to grab our stitch at the very top of our puff, and we're going to slip stitch right in there. There we go, and then we're going to snip our yarn just enough so that we can have a weave-in experience. We're going to weave these into at the end. Okay, we can take that off. Probably should have left myself just a little bit more. I'm going to have an interesting time weaving that one in, that's for sure. Okay, so on to the last row. It's really not that terribly complicated. I'm going to show you this one too. So to get this corner, we're going to do a chain of 3, or excuse me, 3 DCs, a chain of 2, 3 DCs. That's how you get that corner. Kind of naturally goes into a corner. Now here, I actually didn't do a chain in between each of these, but I think I will this time. So you can do a chain of 1, 3 DCs, a chain of 1, 3 DCs, a chain of 1. So, but let's go ahead and get to it. Let me find my color. We're gonna add, it doesn't matter where you add it, any of those chain 2 spaces, you're going to insert a hook, grab it, loop it, and we're actually going to do another stacking stitch. So we're going to do the single crochet, and remember the stacking stitch, we're going to go into this vertical bar right there and do another single crochet. So there you have it, your stacking stitch. So that's your first double crochet. So then we're going to do another 2 double crochets in that space, chain of 2, 3 more double crochets, 2 and 3. All right, now this is where I normally didn't do a chain of 1 my other piece, but you can do a chain of 1. I think that's what we're going to do on this one. And then you're just going to do 3 double crochets in the next space, and you're going to do that 3 times. So you're going to have, so just like here, we're going to show you what the pattern kind of looks like. So you have a corner space which has 3 double crochets, chain of 2, 3 double crochets. Okay, then you're going to have 1, 2, 3. So in the next 3 spaces, we're going to do 3 double crochets, chain of 1, 3 double crochets, chain of 1, 3 double crochets, chain of 1 until we get to the next corner. Okay, so let's do that together. And I'm actually going to crochet over my yarn. Whoops, I'm out of the shot. Shame on me. Chain of 1. How about we back this up since you guys got the basic ideas now. All right, 1, 2, and 3. So let's look at the visual. Okay, so I only have 1 and 2. Okay, so yep, we're gonna do 3 double crochets, a chain 1 in each one of these next. So the next one, we're gonna do the chain of 3. Excuse me, the DC's chain of 1. Oh, and then I forgot to do the chain of 1. Chain of 1, 1, 2, and 3. And then we're back to the corner where we can do 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets in the same space. Chain 2, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, all right, so then we're going to repeat that pattern all over again. Do the 3, 1, 2, 3, 3 spaces, 1, 2, 3. So you're going to do 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochets, chain 1, and in each corner you're going to do 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets in the same corner. That's what gives you that square effect. And I will see you at the end of the row. Okay, we're at the end here. Okay, so remember that we did the stacking stitch. Oh my goodness, I can't even remember the name of the stitch. The stacking stitch. And we're going to slip stitch in that top one right there. And then I'm going to show you the difference between the 2 that I did. This one, I just did a chain in between each of the 3 double crochets. And then this one, I did not. So I don't know that there's really not much of a difference. Yeah, I mean, this one kind of looks a little slightly bigger. So yeah, I'll just leave it up to your discretion. Whichever way you want to do it. I don't really see much of a difference. It just looks slightly fatter. You know, it's the fatter cousin. All right, so we've got a couple of tips here. I'm going to chop this up here. So remember with the changing of the colors, how we went through, we did it, pulled that up, had that yarn, that tail in the front, and then we went through, pulled that up, and just did a chain of 1. So that's how you're going to do your adding the new color. Keep the puff stitches loose so they stay plump instead of collapsing. So that's kind of where you want to go. Don't do it too loose because then it looks like a scraggler. But yeah, anyway. So, and then if your square starts to ruffle, you want to double check your stitch counts because circles are divas about math. And with that, our Sunburst Granny Square is finished. Ends neatly tucked in. For those heading off to crochet on your own, until next time, happy crocheting. But for those sticking around, let me tell you about the last time I made one of these. All right, friends, the tutorial is done. Ends are woven in, and if you're still here, settle in, get you some tea, a snacky snack. I recommend something crunchy. It pairs well with secondhand chaos, because today I'm telling you about the Sunburst Incident, which began like a normal afternoon and ended with me side-eyeing my own tripod. I had just said my polite outro. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to block your squares. When the front door flew open like a stagehand yanked a pulley, in came Stella Stitchwell, arms wrapped around her yarn bag, the way people in documentaries hold priceless artifacts while the narrator whispers, "Tragically, it was already too late." "They've struck again," she declared. "No, hello. How are you?" Just apocalypse." She thumped the bag down onto my table, which I had curated into an Instagrammable sunburst of golden, coral, and petal pinks. It was a still life. It was serenity. It was 2 seconds from being ruined. Zipper, dump. And then the serenity became a heap of yarn scraps that looked like a thrift store and a piñata had a messy breakup. Neon green, mud browns, glitter eyelash yarn that had been through things. Somewhere, a craft angel lost its wings. "This," she said, pointing at the pile as if it had personally offended her ancestors, "is a message." I said, "The message is by a lint roller?" But no. According to Stella, this was a warning shot. Capital W, capital S, italicized in her voice. Now, for anyone just joining the channel's after-party lore, Stella's my friend, a brilliant crocheter, and the only person I know who carries tweezers labeled forensic. She believes in a mysterious figure, whom she calls the saboteur, keeps tampering with her projects. Me? I believe in knots, gravity, and the human tendency to trip over their own stitch markers. We agree to disagree loudly. Stella plunged both hands into the pile and did that rummaging thing detectives do in movies, except with acrylic. "I left my bag next to the kettle," she said. "I went to get a lemon. A lemon! I return, and boom, my skeins are gone, replaced with noise." "Noise?" I repeated, because it was either echo her or ask why she left a lemon unsupervised. "Don't you see it?" She picked up a strip of neon as if it were a venomous snake. "Polyester blend. 4-ply. The exact texture of someone snickering behind your back." "Smells like a laundromat," I offered. She sniffed. "Citrus. Not mine." "Other people also own soap," I said. She ignored me, which is the foundation of our friendship. Then her hand stilled and she slowly pulled out a crumpled yarn wrapper, like she'd found a treasure map pressed into the lining. Across it, in thick black marker, "The brighter it shines, the closer you are." We stared at it. It stared back. I gave it 12 seconds of ominous silence, which I felt was generous, and then said, "So, sunscreen?" Stella inhaled like I'd kicked a puppy. It's a clue, she said. And it's brilliant because it's terrible, which is exactly their brand. We had now entered theory hour. Shine could be the yarn's sheen, she said, pacing, or metaphorical radiance, or the stage lights at the expo. They want me closer? But to what? Or to who? Or to whom? She corrected herself mid-spiral, which is very Stella. Grammar at the crime scene. Before I could congratulate her on pronoun vigilance, something bounced out of the bag, hit the edge of the table, and skittered toward me. A little plastic stitch counter. It came to a rest, staring up with the implacable face of a clock that knows things. 16. Did you set this? I asked, pointing. Stella swooped like a hawk. No, I left it at 0. Maybe it got bored, I said. It's a number, she whispered, the way some people say prophecy. 16 what? 16 petals in the sunburst? 16 suspects? 16 stitches until disaster? Third one's accurate, I said. She started laying out evidence with the solemnity of a museum curator who's had a long week. Neon scrap, Exhibit A. Glitter eyelash, Exhibit B. Yarn wrapper, Exhibit Knife in the Dark. Her label, not mine. She produced a tiny UV flashlight from her cardigan, because of course, and shined it over the glitter. The glitter did what glitter does. It shone dramatically. UV reactive particulate, Stella announced. Otherwise known as glitter, I said. She clicked off the light with dignity. We follow the shine. She reread the wrapper in a movie trailer voice. The brighter it shines, the closer you are. Or they wanted you to pick cheerful colors, I said. It's a Sunburst Square. The clue is very on theme. She made a face, like I suggested we switch to plastic hooks. Then, from a hidden inner pocket, she plucked a tiny stitch marker shaped like a sun. Golden, cheerful, the kind of thing sold near the register because who can resist a tiny, smiling, celestial body? On the back, scratched with something small and dramatic, the number 4. Okay, that's weirder, I admitted. Stella held it up like Simba on Pride Rock. They're counting. 2, 4, I said. Down, across, episodes? She spun in place. Or it's a booth number at the expo. The expo logo is a sunburst. Their stage lights are criminal. The brighter it shines... Stage? Closer. You approach the mic. This is a trap. I mean, no one's forcing you to do a Q&A, I said. Stella did not hear me. She'd already migrated to the corkboard I keep for actual video planning and repurposed it as a wall of improbability. Strings, pins, printed photos from craft night. How she had those printed already is a separate mystery altogether. The wrapper at the center, sun marker like a heraldic emblem. If you've ever seen modern art that made you feel like it knew more about you than you knew about it, that was the corkboard. Suspects, she said, uncapping a marker with violent intent. Marcy, tension like piano wire, once called my teal assertive. Todd, weaves in ends at a demonic speed. Motive. Envy. Linda owns a freezer. People own freezers, I said. She owns a spare freezer, Stella said. What is she freezing? Yarn? She's freezing yarn? I've felt frosted yarn in the wild. It squeaks. I pressed my lips together to keep the mental image from escaping. Yes, the wild, where the frosted yarn herds roam free. She pointed the marker at me. Mockery is the weapon of the guilty. I'm confessing to nothing except wanting to rearrange this scrap heap into something that doesn't look like a clown exploded. Rearrange it, she said, distracted, scribbling Linda in all caps with underlines that would have impressed a high school highlighter. But don't disrupt the pattern. We both looked down at the chaos, and then I did the thing I always do when things feel out of control. I sorted by color value, darks to lights, dollar scraps here, brighter ones there, a casual fan of brightness. Without meaning to, I had created, yes, the most low-budget sunburst you've ever seen. The bright strips formed little rays, and several of those rays pointed to the window. Stella froze. Don't move. I didn't. She didn't either, for a breath. Then she tiptoed like a bugler in a cartoon and swept aside the curtain. If you've ever questioned whether washi tape with tiny suns is a need or a want, I present exhibit the envelope taped to my window. Washi tape, tiny suns, I rest my case. Stella peeled it off with the reverence of someone diffusing a situation. Inside, a second scrap of the same yarn wrapper, same message, and another sun marker. Identical smile, identical scratch. 4. Okay, so not counting down, I said, taking it. Counting at? Marking, Stella said. Marking what, though? The number on both is 4, I said. What if it's episode 4? I paused. Which, if true, is a very chaotic marking plan. She didn't dignify that. Expo, she said instead, eyes bright. Aisle 16, booth 4. That's a real thing that could exist. The brighter is shines. Main stage. They're drawing me there. Or they want you to buy a ticket, I said. Which, to be fair, is kind of how expos work. We were interrupted by her phone vibrating across the table like a trapped beetle. Stella answered with the gravity of a detective on a wiretap. You're on speaker, she announced to someone who did not ask to be. Hi, chirped Lila's voice. Lila is that friend who starts every sentence with a full speed. Did you get the thing? Stella and I glanced at each other. What thing? We chorused. The rubber, Lila said. I left it on your porch. It's from that new shop across town with the bright lights. I thought of your sunburst and recycling is good for karma. Also, your porch camera has the cutest little blink. You left the wrapper? Stella said flatly. Yep, anyway, freezer delivery just arrived, so I gotta... Freezer? Stella echoed, like a villain catching a keyword. Click. Call over. The theater went silent. I cleared my throat. So the wrapper itself was Lila's, not the saboteur's. Stella pasted the kind of smile that meant her entire theory had just taken a left turn, and she refused to let the audience see the blinker. Which means the saboteur saw the wrapper and piggybacked their own messages onto it. The glitter smudge on the back, I said, flipping it, not ours. See? Stella beamed. Foreign glitter. Glitter is a fingerprint, and I will take that to court. Good luck finding a jury not contaminated by craft store residue, I said. She pinned the second sun on the corkboard. The two little faces looked up at us with that permanently cheerful expression that becomes unnerving if you stare too long. The stitch counter, still glaring 16, sat between them like a referee. 16, Stella murmured. For Sunburst, Expo, cameras. They want an audience. The good news is we have one, I said, gesturing vaguely at you, the viewer, who had no idea you'd become a character in a conspiracy. Stella squared her shoulders. This is her I'm about to make choices posture. We lure them, she said. We outshine them, craft night first, then expo. We make ourselves irresistible. To Ma's? I said. To justice, she said, and grabbed her bag like a cape. She swept toward the door, then spun back, grabbed the entire offensive pile of scraps. Yes, all of it. Hugged it like stolen treasure, and swept out again. It would have been perfect exit if she hadn't immediately popped back in to fetch her forensic tweezers and a granola bar. Silence. I stood amid the wake of yarn carnage, the cork board announcing Linda in an aggressive font, two suns smiling like Colt emissaries, and a stitch counter that might as well have been ticking. I started tidying because, faced with nonsense, we cling to what we can control. Edges aligned, scraps folded, table wiped. That's when I noticed a little glint from the mouth of my tripod bag. Just a wink of light, a sparkle that did not belong to my soul. Okay, I told the empty room, because narrating to yourself is a controlled descent into sanity. Either my equipment is haunted, or I eased the zipper open like I didn't want to spook whatever physics was doing. Nestled beside the collapsible light stand, tucked in the seam, was another sun-stitch marker. Gold. Friendly. Back scratched. 4. I held it up between finger and thumb, and somewhere in the hallway, Stella's footsteps paused. She reappeared, one shoe on, one shoe in hand, hair slightly more chaotic than it had been 60 seconds ago. My tweezers, she started, then saw the marker and went still. Where did you get that? In the tripod bag, I said. In the... She approached slowly. In the camera gear? Which we keep. Here. Always. Yes, I said. And you didn't put it there? I did not install a solar system in my tripod, I said. Stella took the marker from me as if it might bite, flipped it, confirmed the 4, and laid it with its brothers. 3 suns in a row. The stitch counter stared 16 like a punchline we hadn't earned yet. The wrapper centered like a cheap tarot card. They've been in the room, she said quietly. Not dramatic now, not operatic, just that low, matter-of-fact tone that makes the hairs on your arms sit up and file paperwork. Or they were, I said, at some point before, when we weren't looking. Stella lifted her chin. The theater lights inside her eyes came back up. Then we look. Harder. We'll be brighter. We'll be closer. She tilted her face toward the lens. You. Like a challenge. To the saboteur. If you're watching, and I know you are, meet me where it shines the brightest. I feel obligated to note we are not legally consenting to any crimes, I added to the room, because someone has to be the disclaimer. Stella shouldered her bag again, this time with tweezers and the granola bar and a sense of purpose like caffeine. Craft night, she said. Then expo. In that order? I asked. In that order, she said. Bring the UV flashlight. That's how moths die, I said. I'm not a moth, she said, which is true, though the jury is still out on the glitter. She left for the third, final, hopefully final time. The door closed. The room exhaled. I looked at the three suns, the number 16, the rapper's bad poetry, and then, because the universe knows timing, there was the faintest little tink somewhere behind my bookshelf. Not loud, just the sound of metal finding metal, or a cheerful celestial face bumping into a paperclip. I didn't move. I looked at you instead, like a conspirator, and I said, "So, if anyone out there runs aisle 16, booth 4 at the expo, please be nice when Stella arrives. Also, maybe install a glitter trap." And that's where I'm leaving it tonight, because the next part involves a corkboard, 3 alibis, and a freezer I did not know a person could love. But that, as they say in the very serious world of yarn-related intrigue, is episode 2. If you enjoyed the chaos, you know what to do. If you are the saboteur, just know Stella carries tweezers with a vengeance, and I alphabetize my stitch markers. We are, frankly, unstoppable.